1, Venom vs. Sandman. In Peter Parker's Spider-Man Volume 1, number 16, Sandman took to reforming the Sinister Six to go after Spider-Man. Now, one of those six was Eddie Brock, aka Venom. Venom now has a vendetta against the Sinister Six though, because they embarrassed him pretty badly. Now, during their scuffle that took place inside the Daily Bugle, things quickly take a turn for the choppy as Venom takes a huge chunk out of Sandman's body, digesting it, and this causes Sandman to destabilize and break down. Unable to stop himself from falling apart, Sandman heads for the hills, leaving Venom to fight Spider-Man alone. It's a pretty awful and pretty quick loss for Sandman, who does eventually return, but not as his old self, as the years spent separated from his corporeal form left his mind in tatters.
And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by checking out our playlist. We got a villain playlist as well, so if you like villains, we got you. Number 9, Morgan Le Fay versus Dr. Doom. Morgan Le Fay and Dr. Doom have faced off before, and honestly, when it comes to like who would win here, I feel like either could take down their opponent. I might even honestly give the edge to Morgan Le Fay when it comes to just like raw power and magical skill, but what he might lack in raw power, Doom certainly makes up for in ingenuity. Le Fay's mistake was going to attack Doom in his own time, because she is from the past. Using the time cube he then acquired, he was able to use this fact against her to defeat her, sending her on a one-way ticket home to the Middle Ages. Sort of. I mean, she would actually have to like fight her way back to her time too. It's pretty wild. In fact, Doom actually could have even probably destroyed her here, but he either chose not to because perhaps a part of him still, I don't know, had romantic feelings for her, or because she herself was tied to him through time, so doing so would maybe cause him to be harmed or something like that.
Number 8, Joker vs. Red Skull. Now look, the Joker is a maniac, an absolutely insane criminal lunatic, but hey, he is an American criminal lunatic, which means dealing with someone with the past of the Red Skull is an absolute no-no for him. Yes, these two villains teamed up together in the Batman and Captain America team-up special back when DC and Marvel actually got along with each other. Now naturally, these heroes' two greatest villains team up to take them on, but I guess it turns out that even the Joker is above the morals of a World War II era war criminal. The Red Skull hires the Joker to steal an atomic doomsday device, which the Clown Prince of Crime totally agrees to do, until he sees Red Skull waltz out with a certain symbol front and center on his outfit, indicating his involvement in World War II, which is then confidently confirmed by the Red Skull. This is when the Joker delivers the line about being an American criminal lunatic, and the two simultaneously attack each other, Joker with his venom and Red Skull with his dust of death, which they are both immune to. This is when Joker then gets smacked over the back of the head with a wrench. Eventually, the fight makes it onto a plane where the Joker overpowers Red Skull and they both go tumbling down through the sky alongside the atomic device that they stole, destroying them both in the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know if I'm shocked at Joker switching sides or at the fact that they had a fist fight while straddling on top of an active fat boy. It's one of the two.
Number 7, Magneto vs. Uranos. One of my favorite fights of recent times. Magneto vs. Uranos is honestly an epic fight. And yes, Magneto is technically a hero at that point in his story, but he certainly started as a villain, and I really love this fight, and this is in part my list, so I'm gonna count it. Okay? Magneto and Uranos came to blows when the Eternals, the race of superpowered beings, not the superhero group themselves, decided that all mutants were actually also deviants and decided to declare war on them as a result. Current Prime Eternal Druig let out Uranos, one of the worst of the Eternal prisoners, to wreak havoc on Mars, aka now planet Araco, for 1 hour, to help Druig in defeating the mutants. During this time, Uranos severely, and I mean severely, messed up Magneto, but while he thought he'd killed Magneto, he was wrong. And Magneto, teamed up with Storm, would return to take Uranos down the next time they came to blows. At the time, the fight cost Magneto his life, and it was an epic battle. You can check it out in the AXE event in the X-Men Red tie-in issue in issue number 5, and AXE Judgment Day issue number 4.
Number 6, Magneto versus the Red Skull. Now this is not really a fight, it's more like a total domination. Magneto and the Red Skull are on opposite sides of history. Magneto grew up in a Jewish family living in Germany during World War II, and we all know Red Skull and Hydra's stance in World War II Germany. So it's safe to say that these two villains will almost never get along. But in Acts of Vengeance from 1989, Magneto and Red Skull were actually temporarily united. But it's really important to note that Magneto was unsure whether this was the Red Skull that aided Germany in the mass wipeout of his people. So Magneto confronted Red Skull, and Red Skull confirmed that he was indeed the original. And just like that, it didn't take much for Magneto, the Master of Magnetism, to overpower the Skull. But unlike what you might think, Magneto does not take his life. Instead, the Red Skull wakes up in a pitch-black bunker with Magneto turning a flashlight on him as he monologues at him about how ending his life would just make Magneto no better than a common killer, no better than Red Skull. And then he reminds him how he is much better than Red Skull. Magneto explains Skull's new situation: solitary confinement in a stripped-down fallout shelter 20 feet underground with no ladder to the escape hatch, 10 gallons of water he is going to have to conserve, and Magneto rips out Skull's homing transmitters. He gives him no food, no light, just water and air, and he leaves him to wish that Magneto had just ended his life. Nice.
Number 5. Kang vs. Thanos. While in the main continuity, Kang has sometimes been shown to be kind of terrified of Thanos, which honestly, reasonable, there are a few counterpoints that we have to prove that Kang may actually be the one who comes out on top if these two ever had to dramatically face off, which many out there I know are hoping they'll do in the MCU. Me, while I enjoy a good supervillain face-off as much as the next person, I don't necessarily believe in power scaling, so I don't really need this fight to happen per se, but even I wouldn't say no if it was like offered to me on a platter. Just because I think it would be a cool fight, honestly. Kang has been shown to have defeated multiple alternate reality Avengers teams in the comics, something that he's actually alluded to as well in the MCU in Quantumania with simply his own two hands, which puts him at a higher level, I would say, than Thanos in regards to his ingenuity and his resourcefulness. After all, Thanos was dependent on Infinity Stones or Infinity Gems, if you prefer the classic term, to do this. Although that being said, I don't think he needs Infinity Gems to win the day. However, in Mech Strike issue number 4, which takes place in an alternate reality, Kang also made quick work of Thanos, who was fighting with the alternate reality team of mech-wielding Avengers. Kang, being a master of time, used that time to age Thanos, reducing him to bones within a few quick and brutal panels.
In at number 4 today is Thrag vs. Battle Beast. Now, some people may come for me here saying that Battle Beast is a hero. Some would agree that he is a villain. I'd say that Battle Beast fights for his own reasons on both sides, as long as it serves his goal. And what is that goal? He lives to find his equal and better in combat so that they can bring the end of his life in an honorable battle. The Viltrumites from the Invincible series are a race of near invulnerable, incredibly strong, world-conquering aliens, but none among them stands as strong, as invulnerable, as Grand Regent Thrag. Battle-hardened over thousands of years, only the most powerful characters can even hope to stand one-on-one against this powerhouse, and this makes him the perfect opponent for Battle Beast, and their fight is intense. Now, the Coalition of Worlds organized the use of Ragnars, which are one of the only species of aliens who have proven strong enough to take down Viltrumites. Battle Beast was told that they would only be released if he failed to take down Thrag, so when they were released right at the start of the fight and gave Thrag a massive wound, Battle Beast was actually incredibly peed off, and had decided to stop fighting Thrag and instead help him to defeat the Ragnars so that they could have a fair fight, which Thrag even remarks was kinda stupid. But not only did he take away his own advantage, but he even injured himself in the same way Thrag had been injured, just so he wouldn't have an unfair advantage. This fight continued in the background of the entire next issue, and it didn't actually end until 5 issues later when Thrag finally claimed victory. It's definitely one of the best fights of the entire series.
Number 3. Darkseid vs. Imperiex. Although these two didn't face head-on, there was a time when Darkseid and the villain Imperiex fought against one another. Granted, Darkseid did so while teamed up with the Justice League. He did so to seemingly help save Earth, but in reality, he had ulterior motives that were much more sinister because he's still Darkseid. If you thought Darkseid was deadly, Imperiex may have actually been even more so. While Darkseid wants to rule the universe, Imperix's sole purpose is basically to destroy it. Darkseid, however, hoped to defeat Imperiex so that he might steal his energy and use it to conquer everything. But then, Brainiac 13 beat him to that, and so Darkseid was forced to assist fully in defeating Imperiex. And basically, like, forgo his own plan. He's like, dang it, Brainiac, you beat me to it.
Number 2. Thanos versus Darkseid. When the story of Marvel versus DC was being planned out, publishers from both sides made decisions for how certain battles would conclude, but they also allowed fans to determine the outcome of certain battles as well. So as you can imagine, the battle between what is arguably DC and Marvel's biggest bad guys ever left fans rather divided, with the two often being compared and contrasted, and even claims that one is a copy of another. This battle was a long time coming. It was an interesting one, kind of told in little snippets throughout the 4 issues of the story. We see them first come face to face, and then Thanos approaches the battle with a pretty respectable threat against the ruler of Apocalypse. Darkseid, on the other hand, dropped all sense of mutual respect, and he straight up called Thanos a pale imitation of himself. Kind of a sick burn. Then later on, Darkseid 6 Lobo on Thanos before coming to face him properly. Then their fight is interrupted by the heroes showing up to intervene, and then the whole merging of the two universes is settled by the fighting entities of the Living Tribunal and the Spectre. So we don't even definitively get an end here. Now I gotta be honest though, I do believe that Darkseid would win 9 times out of 10. He just has way more going for him than Thanos does, and that's saying a lot. Now if you disagree, feel free to drop a comment and tell me why, because I am curious to know.
Number 1. Batman Who Laughs versus Perpetua. When you think about just who Batman Who Laughs is on paper, it doesn't sound insanely strong. But then you consider how wild his mind would be if we took, Bruce Wayne, Batman, and we took the Joker and we combined those two people. And just what he would then be capable of. And yeah. Kinda does make sense. Perpetua is literally one of the most powerful beings in the DC multiverse, so honestly that's a given. These two duked it out near the end of Dark Knight's death metal, and surprisingly Batman Who Laughs was able to turn the tables on Perpetua, sealing her back in the Source Wall before shattering it and thereby destroying her. Number 10. James Gordon Jr., also known as X-Strike. James Gordon Jr. is a sociopath who in the New Earth continuity believed that empathy made you weak, and set out to prove as much to Batman. While he is just a sociopath murderer who enjoys hurting other people, James also happens to have a genius level intellect, which is obviously a pretty deadly combination. In the story Black Mirror, he set out to administer medication he had made to infants which increases psychotic tendencies, a medication he himself was using, supplementing the meds that would have helped to subdue those tendencies and calm those instincts within him. It took a while before the Bat family or the Gordons managed to figure out that something was not right when James returned. Although at least his dad, Commissioner Jim Gordon, had instincts that something was pretty much up right away and decided to follow those, which ultimately allowed James's plot to be uncovered and for him to be apprehended in the end. In the Prime Earth continuity, he was part of the Suicide Squad and was known for being their analyst. James also seems to be one of those villains who dies in stories but then always somehow comes back. I feel like he's done that at least a couple times, so although he's dead right now, he'll probably come back at some point. If I was writing, I'd bring him back. I like James Gordon Jr. Number 9. Holiday. Holiday has to be one of the most unexpected villains in Batman and Gotham's rogue gallery, and an accomplished unexpected villain at that. Holiday was a serial killer who seemed to be targeting the criminal mob family known as the Falcons with his targets. However, then the Maroni family was also targeted, another massive crime family in Gotham. This created a lot of tension between Sal Maroni and Carmine Falcone, the head of both families respectively. However, in the end, Holiday wiped out not just many of the people and members of the Falcons, but also killed various members of the Maroni family as well, with the killings taking place on holidays. In the end, Batman and Jim Gordon managed to apprehend Holiday, but only after he had successfully killed Sal Maroni on Labor Day. Holiday turned out to be the youngest son of Carmine Falcone, Alberto, who wanted to prove himself and get revenge for being excluded from the family business. Although in reality, this was pretty much done to protect him. Wow, that's unfortunate. Holiday would later face off with Calendar Man, and after being wounded would be smothered to death by his sister. Tragic. Number 8. Calendar Man. Well, of course I gotta put Calendar Man above since he beat Holiday, and that's how it goes. For a guy that pulls off crimes inspired by different holidays, seasons, and calendar dates, Calendar Man can actually be surprisingly successful and terrifying. In his first encounter with Batman, Calendar Man managed to pull off 4 crimes successfully before he was caught. Aside from that, over the years, Calendar Man in the comics has taken his crimes to the next level, even going so far as to murder families as part of a Thanksgiving Day crime spree, sitting down to steal a plate of dinner after successfully wiping out an entire targeted family. That is pretty dark. Of course, Calendar Man's weakness tends to be similar to Riddler's, namely that he leaves clues as to how to capture him often, and we always know his crimes will revolve around notable days in the calendar, so makes it pretty easy to watch out for him. Like, is a holiday coming up? Well, we should probably watch out for Calendar Man. Number 7. Owlman. Pretty much everything about Owlman from Earth 3's crime syndicate is unexpected. He's the evil counterpart to Batman, but is not Earth 3's version of Bruce. Instead, he is Thomas Wayne Jr., who on his Earth was Bruce's older brother. He himself plotted to kill his parents as he believed they were mismanaging their wealth, which would of course end up being his inheritance. In the end, Bruce refused to help Thomas and even attempted to convince him to halt his plot. So Thomas Jr., saddened, was forced to kill his brother, having had much higher hopes for young Bruce. Thomas would then become Owlman and use a combination of fear, wealth, and influence to take control of Gotham. Still missing his brother, he decided to find someone to fill that hole in his heart. After meeting Dick Grayson at the circus, Thomas orchestrated the death of his parents in secret and then offered him support and a home, manipulating him into becoming his sidekick, Talon. Yeah, pretty shocking stuff. Number 6. Hush. Hush has managed to pull off some of the most horrific schemes over the years and gotten under Batman's skin many times, and Catwoman's skin even, when he literally stole her heart. Thomas Elliot is not only a powerful villain because of his intense vendetta against the Wayne family and Batman, but because he also is often shown to have the skill and strength to match Batman, as well as the cunning. He has taken Batman in hand-to-hand combat and fared surprisingly well, and he's managed to set into motion outlandish plots like impersonating Bruce Wayne by giving himself plastic surgery to make himself look nearly identical, then capturing and threatening the real Bruce Wayne with murder and disfigurement so that he could ultimately take his place. Number 5. Darkseid. I know what you're thinking, but Amanda, none of us are surprised that Darkseid is super powerful. It's, you know, kinda his thing. I know Darkseid is super powerful. But remember earlier on when I said that some villains are simply surprising because they happen to go toe to toe with Batman at all? Well, Darkseid is one of those villains. Because he's just so powerful, it makes little sense that Batman would even be able to face him. I'm not knocking Batman here, by the way, just acknowledging that he, at the end of the day, is just a very well trained, skilled, rich man in a bat suit. So yeah. And yet he has also managed to defeat Darkseid on more than one occasion, which is only even more unexpected and surprising. But I guess it's these unexpected storylines that we find so exhilarating and help to sell comics. So when it comes down to why they were written, it actually makes a lot of sense. It's the unexpected matches that are the stories people get excited to write and fans get excited to read. Number 4. Harley Quinn. Harley is just unexpected because of, well, I mean, where she started from in the Batverse. She was introduced in the Batman animated series as Joker's sidekick and girlfriend, and she became such a fan favorite that she was made a regular there even though she was kind of intended to be a one-off character, and would eventually make her way into the comics as well. From there, Harley's popularity meant we'd see her win all kinds of victories, or at least almost win them, and in the animated series she'd also prove how dangerous she was when she came up with some of the most potentially successful schemes, which of course often irritated her partner in crime and her partner in life, Mr. J. Over the years, Harley has become so successful and powerful, in fact, that she has moved more and more away from being a villain and more towards heroic acts, with her now even becoming one of Batman's sidekicks in the comics. For a human, Harley is also shown being very strong, flexible, and durable, in addition to being brilliant, often using her intellect or her unpredictable craziness to outsmart many of her opponents. Let's just remember that at one point she took on Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman all at once, and was actually successful in that encounter. Number 3. Poison Ivy. I mean, we all know how powerful Ivy is at this point, but it should also be acknowledged that initially she was just a student studying to be a botanist who ended up being used in her teacher's / lover's twisted experiment. She then became something new, something deadly, the villain and creature we'd come to know as Poison Ivy. Ivy was initially shown to be immune to all poisons and was interested in crime for basically the sake of status and power, able to use pheromones and kisses to influence her enemies. The power of seduction. I don't know what this is. This is seduction, apparently. Since then, Ivy has come a long way at one point, even taking control of the whole world, controlling everyone's minds through plant life that they had consumed. She also became a full-on terrifying eco-terrorist, and since the very real and also fictional world of eco-horror continues to grow, so does Ivy's power and presence in the comics, especially now that she's returned to her more traditional, villainous ways. Which is also kind of unexpected, because she was down this hero path and then they were like, she's a villain again. And I was like, huh? Alright. Number 2. Karma. Just because you are considered a low-level thug, or in Fleet Delmar's case a supposed freedom fighter, doesn't mean you can't rise above your rank and become something greater. That is just what Fleet did. He ended up getting his hands on some alien tech that allowed him to move up to the next level when it came to his rank as a threatening and powerful Batman villain. He was supposedly apprehended by Batman years before, who had tormented him with fear gas as punishment for his crimes. It's pretty harsh, really. This experience apparently led to him losing his eyes and becoming blind, which is why he decided to seize the alien tech and use it to get revenge. The helmet he wore granted him psychic powers, allowing him to read the minds of his opponent and counteract their attacks easily in a fight. The helmet also allowed him to absorb energy blasts, which at one point allowed Karma to take on both Black Lightning and Batman at the same time. And then he went on to have a semi-successful career with the League of Assassins, so I mean he died, but still, pretty crazy for just like a low-level thug in my opinion. Number 1. Phantasm. Phantasm is of course unexpected given that she had a secret identity, and in the animated series we even expected her to be a he instead of a she, so that's pretty unexpected. Andrea Beaumont is also one of those very powerful and strong villains for the fact that she holds a lot of sway over Bruce Wayne, being one of his love interests as well. Not only that, but when it comes to many of her skills and her physical prowess, she's often shown to match Batman and be on a very similar level to him, which is of course quite impressive because Batman is pretty crazy. Andrea is also surprisingly more ruthless in comparison to Bruce, having no qualms with killing those who cross her, whereas Bruce typically holds back from killing, at least in the current continuity. In his original days, not so much. So not only does she potentially have him as an ally at times, but she also has all the skill, strength, and know-how to use their relationship and her knowledge of Bruce to her advantage when playing the role of antagonist.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Heatwave. This Flash villain made his first debut back in the Flash issue 140. He's standing on the cover with another popular villain, which of course I'll mention later on in this list. But Heatwave, aka Mick Rory, was one of those kids who was obsessed with fire. We always had that one kid who was playing with a lighter. Just trouble. Stay away from those kids, always. Absolutely trouble. He was a pyromaniac, and his entire history with schools and his family and everybody that's close to him, it's so dark. He burns down everything. He is a maniac. He got a job as a fire eater in a circus, but of course this didn't last long because he set the circus on fire. That's just how extreme he is when it comes to these elements. In his first issue, his sights aren't even set on the Flash. He's actually battling Captain Cold, and the Flash is like, well, this both looks terrible, so I gotta stop both of these maniacs, I guess. He saw the rogues in action, and then he decided to suit up himself and join the bad guys officially. So he suited up and carried a handy flamethrower gun and took on the nickname Heatwave, appropriately so. He appears in the CW series The Flash, played by Dominic Purcell, and he didn't last too long in the Justice League Flashpoint Paradox animated film as well. But he's one of the rogues that attacked the Flash at the start of the movie, so he's pretty important, so I figured we'd start the list off with him. And before we continue on with this list of Flash supervillains, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, it does wonders for our channel, it helps us out so much. You guys are the best, thank you so much. Now let's get right back to the list. Number 9, Captain Cold. Another character alongside Heatwave in the Flash series actually ended up changing to the good side in CW's Legends of Tomorrow. But in the comics, he was just as much of a nuisance as Heatwave. Meet Leonard Snart, which is an amazing name, first of all. He made his debut in Showcase issue 8. So Leonard enjoyed the company of his grandfather, who ran an ice cream truck, but after his grandfather passed away, sadly, Leonard had to spend his days entirely with his father, who was in no means a good parent at all. So next he studied the energy emissions of his cyclotron and figured it could work against the Flash. So he designed a weapon that could freeze people using the moisture in the air. Now it sounds fatal, but he only takes his villainy ways to a certain point. He has the same rule as Batman, which means no, you know what I'm saying? So he's not the worst of the worst. I mean, he uses a cold gun to attack the Flash, and he's the leader of the rogues, so he's still pretty bad, but As far as villains go, he's not too crazy. But still, Captain Cold can also be seen in The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, played by Wentworth Miller, so he's pretty relevant. Number 8, Mirror Master. The other guy standing alongside Heatwave was Mirror Master. Now, he made his first debut back in The Flash issue 105. Meet Samuel Scudder. He was a burglar, of course, who liked to use mirrors as a weapon. So already this guy sounds like a villain in the making. But it gets better. It gets so much better. So thankfully, due to some forensic science, he was put behind bars, but things just amplified in there for the worst. For some reason, they had this guy working shifts at the mirror factory in the prison, because you know how those are a thing. So when he goes to throw out a mirror, he realizes that this mirror showed him the foreman's face instead of his, which is pretty odd. Now this mirror would show an image for minutes longer, so he figured he would study the specific mirror and use it as a way to create more crazy mirrors with more crazy effects. Soon after, he developed a costume, deemed himself the Mirror Master, using mirrors to create duplicates of other people to commit these crimes. And then there was a second Mirror Master. There were 2. I mean, maybe there were probably 100 with all these damn mirrors. But we have Evan McCullough, and he made his trippy debut in Animal Man issue 8. He began his career already an assassin, and then add a fancy mirror gun to the mix, and we have a guy that can travel through mirrors in the mirror dimension. So both of these guys, different versions, but both equally as wacky and pretty terrifying. Imagine a guy coming out of your mirror like, give me all your money. I'd faint. I'd definitely faint. The CW used Mirror Master Sam Scudder, who in the show was actually a rival to Leonard Snart. And they also used another Mirror Master as well, but this time it was Eva McCullough, and her alias was Mirror Monarch. All the mirrors, all the people. Number 7, Dr. Alchemy. Albert Desmond made his comic book debut in Showcase issue 13. Another villain that gets locked up by the Flash, and then they really start to get creative. So Albert found the Philosopher's Stone. So now he was a criminal who had the ability to change elements from one to another. So of course he used the stone to escape prison, and since it's comic books we're talking about here, he made a cool name for himself. Maybe one of the coolest in my opinion, Dr. Alchemy. But he has another side of him, literally. So he came out, he got good, and then he quit his life of crime that was unfolding. So he hid the stone, tucked it away, he didn't want any part of that anymore. He tried to move on, okay? Tried is the key word here. See, this stone can completely change elements, and also it can completely change people, sometimes for the worse. A new Dr. Alchemy popped up, and it was Albert's evil twin, which was a construct that the stone made itself. So they both shared a psychic link. How trippy is that? So he too joined the Rogues once he went back to his villain days. Number 6, Gorilla Grodd. In the Justice League, Barry Allen makes a reference to one of his skills being that of Gorilla Sign Language. And although we never saw him in the Snyder Cut or anything like that, Gorilla Grodd is one of Barry Allen's mightiest foes. Just by looking at him, you could probably guess that. He made his first appearance in The Flash issue 106 back in 1959. And the first time we see him, it's pretty obvious it's not your average gorilla. He's blasting thought waves at the Flash. Thought waves. So what's going on here? Why is a gorilla blasting thought waves? He's a gorilla who got phenomenal abilities after being exposed to a meteor that landed near his tribe. Now, he's a super strong gorilla that can control the minds of others, being animals or people. In the CW, this version of the character is a little bit different. He's just the smart gorilla that was experimented on by Star Labs, and they intended to use him as a weapon for the government, but obviously Grodd wasn't on board and busted out of there. Number 5, Abracadabra. Citizen Abra was a stage magician in the 64th century. Now his stage name, of course, was very fitting to the role, Abracadabra. He was a magician in this time where science was so advanced that magic shows just weren't a thing anymore. You couldn't really fool somebody. They're like, hey, we all know technology and all these tricks. This isn't new. We figured this out. It's like if I were to pull an iPhone out in 1990 and be like, check out Angry Birds. It's like, cool, but we're gonna get that later. There was no tricking anybody with magic. They were almost too smart, some would say. Nobody wanted to go and pay and see old tricks. So he gained all this intelligence from the future and the new sciences that it had to offer, and then the dude went back to our time after stealing a time machine and became this advanced criminal magician. And in our era, the dude can really put on a show. Like Chris Angel is basically this guy, no? Like we're so close to a supervillain. He's basically a supervillain without powers. Yet. Number 4, Godspeed. August Hart, aka Godspeed, made his debut not too long ago in The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, Issue 1. Now, with a name like Godspeed, one can assume the powers in which they'll probably contain. He is truly amazing. He can separate speedsters from the Speed Force. Now, August Hart was also a detective, a former partner of Barry Allen's, actually. And then along comes a force storm in Central City, and all of a sudden you have these godlike powers. Pretty ideal powers for a hero and also a villain? Not cool. Okay, why the villain move though? How did he become a villain? Well, when August's brother was taken out by a criminal, he was released due to insubstantial evidence. So August decided to confront the Black Hole organization after they'd stolen property from Star Labs, and then he sees their symbol, the same one that was at his brother's crime scene. I mean, it's great that you're teaming up with the good guys, but if you're also becoming a villain at the same time and handling things your way, kind of defeats the purpose. I don't know. Come on, man. Number 3, Savitar. He's the primary villain in season 3 of CW's The Flash. Savitar is a future alternate version of Barry Allen, and in the comics he made his first debut in The Flash Volume 2, issue 108. He was a Cold War pilot for a third world nation, and his life was forever changed when he was testing a supersonic fighter jet. Because while he was flying at these tremendous speeds, his jet was hit by lightning and he went down. And then he discovered just like that he had super speed, and then he took on the Hindu term for God of Motion, which translates to, you guessed it, Savitar. What makes him stand out against other speedsters is his Speed Force aura. So while he's whizzing past enemies, he's surrounded by this friction cushion, which makes for some pretty smooth sailing. Electrokinesis also helps. Yeah, super speed plus lightning fists equals one hell of a night. Number 2, Zoom. Hunter Zolomon is the second character to take on the Reverse Flash mantle. Now, it all began when he was injured in an attack from one of those villains I mentioned earlier, Gorilla Grodd. He was left in quite bad conditions. I mean, obviously, he was just attacked by Gorilla Grodd, the villain Gorilla. Like, I'm surprised he lived at all. He was paralyzed from the waist down, and he asked Wally West if he could use his cosmic treadmill and maybe, go back in time and prevent that horrible, life-altering event to take place. Just an idea. But it's not that easy when it comes to speed and time and the Speed Force, so Wally West sadly declined this offer. You can't risk the time stream, it's just not worth it in the grand scheme of things. But Hunter wasn't really asking now, was he? He broke into the museum and tried to use the treadmill, but this resulted in an explosion that shifted Hunter's speed trial. So now he has this ability where he can alter his own time frame, gaining that super speed goodness. So Zoom believed that Wally West declined to help him out because he never experienced loss. So Hunter took it upon himself to go and take out Linda Park, Wally's wife. Not good. So now we have a tragedy, but fear not, because our Barry Allen helped change the tides of time when he prevented her untimely departure. And in The Flash issue 200, Wally West uses his powers to freeze him and makes him repeat the worst day of his life over and over and over and over again. Now, this is why I want to be a speedster, this ability right here. I would love to just make everybody chill out in their favorite memory, especially this tender time in the world right now. Or if you're mean, I'll make you chill out in an embarrassing memory, just for a bit, just to kind of teach out a little lesson. And finally, number 1, we have the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne. He made his debut in The Flash issue 139, titled The Black Flash. He was the OG Reverse Flash. He was born in 2451 when his parents genetically engineered him to be super smart and pretty handsome. But he lacked the social skills to make his parents truly proud, so they decided that another son would maybe be fitting. A new best friend, great idea, sure. I grew up with siblings, I can back this, let's do it. That son's name was Robin, and he spent so much time trying to keep an eye on young Robin and make his parents proud that down the road his application to study the Speed Force at the Flash Museum was rejected. So he studied it illegally. He was too busy playing babysitter, so he's like, okay, I'll get there eventually, I'll just do it illegally. But he was caught by his brother, who was now an officer in the science police. How ironic. The speedster is interesting, a little bit confusing, but definitely interesting. So a future version of Thawne traveled through time, prevented his brother from being born, and then he was able to study and was in turn this time around admitted to the Flash Museum. And then when Professor Drake was on the verge of proving the existence of the Speed Force, now at this point Thawne has trained his entire life for this moment, so he wanted to collab, but Drake said no. So a future version traveled and eliminated Professor Drake from the equation, and then next time around, no Drake, no problem. Now Thawne is the professor at the Flash Museum and was nicknamed Professor Zoom. This was the first Zoom that I mentioned earlier. Reverse Flash is responsible for the deaths of Barry Allen's mother and his wife Iris West. He just rips timelines and the Flash's life apart. He's kind of the worst.
Starting us off in at number 10, Zarathos. Zarathos is a demonic being who tortures and devours souls. What a pastime. He's generally an antagonist for Ghost Rider in Marvel's comics. Now, the demon first appeared in 1972's Marvel Spotlight issue 5, and he's terrifyingly powerful. He's virtually immortal and has superhuman strength, a healing factor, and elemental powers that allow him to wield, control, and project hellfire from his hands. The more souls he consumes, the more powerful he becomes. Now, Mephisto fought against Zarathos to put an end to his reign of terror, making him need to bond with a human host in order to collect souls. Hence why the demon is bonded to Ghost Rider. Speaking of, that brings us to our next number. Up next at 9, Mephisto. Mephisto is Marvel's Satan equivalent, a demon who was based off of Mephistopheles of Faust legend. First appearing in 1968's Silver Surfer issue 3, Mephisto has long been a mainstay in Marvel's demonic world. He's a trickster and extremely powerful immortal demonic entity who can manipulate the forces of magic in order to give him a range of abilities, which include superhuman strength, the ability to shapeshift and shift size, project illusions, manipulate memories, alter time, and avoid injury. If his physical form is destroyed, he can regenerate and reform in his own realm and then return. He acquires souls but cannot subjugate the will of another being without that being's permission, hence his infatuation with making pacts and deals. Up next, number 8, Blackheart. Blackheart was actually created by our previous number, Mephisto. This character first appeared in Daredevil issue 270 in 1989. He is a son that Mephisto created from the energy of accumulated evil. That sounds fun. Blackheart is highly intelligent, can manipulate energy, warp reality, shapeshift, is telepathic and telekinetic, has an accelerated healing factor, magical and mystical powers, and superhuman physical attributes. He also has no soul, and can call forward armies from hell. Moving on to number 7, Set. Set is an elder god, one who got a little greedy in the Marvel Universe. Now, Set had realized that he could become the most powerful of all elder gods by devouring other gods, and therefore decided to murder his fellow brethren in an attempt to harness their power for himself. In doing so, he became the first ever murderer on Earth. The more he murdered and other gods who followed suit murdered, the more they would degenerate into demons, hence why Set is now a demon. He and his brother Shitton were the worst for this and degenerated into ghastly demonic entities. Set's got a whole lot of snake heads. If you don't like snakes, not the demon for you. Although why you would be choosing a demon for you is a question of its own. Moving on to number 6, a DC character finally, Necron. Necron is creepy as Created in 1981, he is a DC character who first appeared in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps issue 2. Necron draws power from souls and commands all of the souls and spirits of individuals who had died. Like, anyone who has died. So yeah, kind of explains the whole scary aesthetic, eh? Anyway, the power he draws from allows him to pull off a lot of horrifyingly nifty tricks, including darkness manipulation, dark energy manipulation, necromancy of course, godly strength, invulnerability. He has a fatal touch, which is exactly what the name implies. He can manipulate souls, energy, matter, and dimensions. He is telepathic, can warp reality, alter his own size, project dark lightning, and of course, he's immortal. In at 5, Dormammu. The longtime foe of Doctor Strange, Dormammu is a demon that debuted back in the Silver Age and Marvel's panels in Strange Tales issue 126 in 1964. Created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, the character is known as the Lord of Chaos and the Great Enigma, and is considered one of the most powerful mystical entities within the Marvel Universe. Now, he's a threat to the life of the universe itself, and is an interdimensional demon composed of mystical energy that can be used to achieve pretty much whatever effect he desires. He can create his own demon lords, and he has been known to be capable of having a universal, even multiversal scale of influence. He lives in the dark dimension where he is stronger thanks to the empowerment of his worshippers and followers. Up next at number 4, Barbatos. Barbatos is the second most recent character on this list in terms of creation. Barbatos was introduced to us during the Dark Knight's Metal event in 2017, in which Batman had accidentally discovered that a dark multiverse lies beneath the regular multiverse. The more he investigated, the more he opened up the gates between the multiverses accidentally, in which this sinister demon decided to send evil alternate versions of Batman over into the regular multiverse, with the intention of invading it and turning it dark. Barbatos is known as the Bat God, created by the World Forger to consume universes that had decayed. Barbatos would kill his creator out of the lust for destruction, and because he was no longer doing his designated job, unstable worlds just kinda stuck around for much longer than they should have, becoming part of this dark multiverse. Moving on to number 3, Shuma-Gorath. Shuma-Gorath is an ancient evil, arguably the most powerful ancient demon to ever exist in the Marvel Universe. Mephisto and Dormammu both claim to be inferiors to Shuma-Gorath, and that kinda speaks volumes, doesn't it? So, who is this big ol' spiky tentacled eye? Well, sometimes referred to as the Lord of Chaos, this demonic entity can manipulate reality, project energy, shapeshift, levitate, teleport, has vast mystical powers, and of course, is immortal. Can't be on this list unless you're an immortal, right? In the early days of Earth's history, Shuma-Gorath demanded human sacrifice before being banished by a time-traveling sorcerer. It would try to return to Earth via the mind of the Ancient One, which caused Doctor Strange to have to kill the Ancient One in order to prevent this from happening. Up next in our number 2 spot, Null. Null is the symbiote god. Created in 2018 in Venom issue 3, Null is an ancient evil deity who created the Clintar race, and a weapon known as the All-Black, the Necrosword. Null, who lived deep within the void in which it drifted ceaselessly, was intruded upon by the Celestials and the light of creation that spoiled its kingdom of darkness. So it sought out revenge, murdering Celestials, including the one whose severed head became nowhere. Anyway, Null has superhuman strength, speed, is immortal, is capable of umberkinesis, can create symbiotes and dominate them, can manipulate dark matter, generate matter, manipulate said matter, has a healing factor, can shapeshift, and is greatly skilled in hand-to-hand combat. The last one just kind of feels like a cherry on top, doesn't it? And finally, last but not least, in at number 1, Chthon. Chthon is some scary Previously an elder god, Chthon has degenerated into a demon, all thanks to his insatiable greed for power and murdering other gods. Don't you just hate it when you degenerate into a demon because you've just been murdering people? I know I do. Anyway, Chthon has been kicking around the Marvel Universe for billions and billions of years. He's got some terrifying powers. The ability to manipulate reality, use dark and chaos magic, in which he has an unimaginable mystical power, which allows him to warp, manipulate, and reconstruct the very fabric of existence and reality to his whims. He has created his own dimension in which he controls every aspect of its reality. He's telepathic. He can take over a mortal's body as a host on Earth, although he can't transfer his totality of power into said body, thank God. It's too much for that physical form to contain. Oh, and of course, he also has a genius level intellect.
Number 10, Count Vertigo. Now aptly named Werner Vertigo, he is a man who was born with an inner ear defect that affected his balance. So naturally he was implanted with a device that not only corrected that, but also gave him the ability to cause extreme vertigo in other people. That's right, his entire ability is disrupting his enemy's balance, and honestly you might think that's not really anything to write home about, but trust me, it is a lot more useful than you might think. Now Count Vertigo uses his ability to mess up the aim of even the best marksmen, to disrupt the guidance system of some of the most high-tech machinery, and even uses it to manipulate the emotions of people, causing them to flop between emotions like crazy. Now there are also 2 other Count Vertigos that fought against Green Arrow, but they use drugs to cause the same effects in their victims, and we are going to ignore them because using drugs is not cool.
It's true, it's not cool.
It's really not.
Number 9, Calendar Man. Calendar Man to most people is just a guy who's obsessed with the date. But in reality, he is also one of the most accomplished villains. During his first appearance, he almost managed to defeat Batman, one of the greatest and smartest detectives in the world, straight out of the gate, by giving him an almost unsolvable problem. Calendar Man sent an anonymous letter promising to commit 5 crimes, one each day, each one corresponding to a particular season and theme, with the 5th day also being a clue as to the true identity of Calendar Man, with the 5th season. Batman failed to capture Calendar Man on the first 4 days, often arriving too late to the scene of the crime. And on the 5th day, it was only an ad for Calendar Man's side hustle as a magician who was playing 5 days at the Bijou Theater in Gotham that allowed Batman to connect the dots. Where would Batman be without ads from the local newspaper? Local newspapers, they're important.
They really are. You always gotta support local.
Yeah.
Number 8, Phobia. Quite possibly one of the most underrated villains in the DC universe, Angela Hawkins III is Phobia, a member of the Brotherhood of Evil and constant enemy of the new Teen Titans that is capable of bringing your deepest and darkest fears to the surface. She basically uses psychic abilities to access the fear center of your brain and creates incredibly lifelike illusions that incapacitate pretty much everyone except for a select few who have been shown to be immune. Funnily enough, she is actually not immune to her own powers because she has some deep, dark insecurities and phobias hidden away as well, behind that, tough exterior. And that was exploited by Raven in an attempt to convert her to the hero side of things. Obviously that didn't work though, because since then, she has joined the Injustice League as a new member.
Number 7, Giganta. You expect Giganta to be strong, of course, considering she is a gigantic woman, but I also feel like she's a villain that is more often than not forgotten by people. So while you might expect the strength to come along with her, you just wouldn't really expect her at all most days. Dora Azul was attempting to cure her rare blood disease that she was born with by experimenting on herself. Her mad scientist ways caused her to end up in a conflict with Wonder Woman, and later caused her to also become the villain she is today. In the original continuity of New Earth, Doris abducted the body of a strong woman named Olga, putting her own consciousness into that body and gaining the ability to grow in size when her plot to steal Wonder Woman's body had failed her.
Number 6. Automatopoeia. Now I personally love a good automatopoeia, but hey, I will take a bad one every now and then, and that is exactly what this villain is. He is a serial killer that specifically targets non-powered heroes, and he is so aptly named because he imitates the noises around him, such as his gunfire or the dripping water. He is also seen to be surprisingly durable for a human, able to take 6 arrows without slowing him down, and drop at least 7 stories and just keep on running. Now this highly trained villain is one of the most clever out there, not only attacking Oliver Queen's son Connor, but fooling Batman so much that that he reveals his own identity. And also in true villain fashion, he messed with Batman even further by killing his fiancée Silver St. Cloud, slitting her throat while imitating the sound Batman's utility belt makes.
Number 5. Punchline. Punchline is a newer villain on the scene and as such has definitely been underestimated. But honestly, it's this attitude that only serves to fuel Punchline's desire to prove that she is actually worthy of all of that hype. As far as we know, she is like Joker, a non-powered human being. Punchline typically fights with small stiletto blades, and despite only being in a few issues so far, she has managed to slit Harley Quinn's throat and create her own specific brew of Joker venom just for Batman, which has succeeded in making him go pretty crazy recently. Imagining Alfred is still alive and still on his communique system, despite the fact that, he's very dead.
Number 4. Amazo. A super deadly android designed by the insane in the membrane scientist Professor Ivo that acts as an enemy to the Justice League. Thanks to its synthetic body, Amazo is capable of replicating anything about a person in its general vicinity, including their powers and skills, so you can probably understand why this android is so powerful and so dangerous. Amazo has been shown duplicating the powers and skills of Superman, Green Lantern, Zatanna, Black Canary, Elongated Man, and so many more, meaning his arsenal of powers to choose from is absolutely ridiculous. Not only that, he also has the ability to temporarily negate the powers of the hero that he's mimicking. So, for example, he could strip Superman of his powers for a finite amount of time and just pummel him into the dirt. That is absolutely insane if you ask me, and that is why he is on this list today.
Number 3. Harley Quinn. In Batman the Animated Series, Harley Quinn unintentionally pissed off the Joker because she proved just how valuable of a partner in crime she was, and how capable she is as a villain without even the Joker's help, and has also done so with her pal Poison Ivy. Though of course Harley and Ivy just believed they had kidnapped millionaire Bruce Wayne at the time and made him take them on a shopping spree. But still, that's pretty impressive. While many also think that Harley is always moving closer to becoming more soft and more of a hero than a baddie, let's not forget when she executed one of the most villainous plots, also without the Joker, killing tons of children across Gotham with free explosives that were disguised as video games, simply because she was bored and sort of feeling lost in terms of what to do with herself. So yeah, don't underestimate Harley Quinn.
Number 2. The Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne, one of the many speedsters that you'll find scattered throughout time and space in the DC universe. Also known as Professor Zoom, this biggest Flash fanatic to ever live is capable of basically all the things that the Flash and his Speed family can do, like time travel, super speed, and electrokinesis. But what really sets him apart is his ability to completely negate another's connection to the Speed Force, effectively stripping his fellow speedsters of their powers and rendering them honestly useless. His most impressive feat though would probably be when he, set the entirety of the New 52 in motion by creating the Flashpoint timeline. Almost every hero and villain dies in some gruesome death thanks to the circumstances of this new universe, and yeah, that's pretty scary if you ask me.
Number 1. Lex Luthor. Now when you boil it down, Lex Luthor is just a dude. He's just a bald dude who has a big beef with Superman. Whether that's because he doesn't like the fact that Superman's an alien, or he blames Superman for his hair loss, depending on the comics you're reading. The fact remains that his brilliant intellect puts him in the running to be one of the strongest, most powerful, and definitely most iconic Superman villains of all time. The fact that 1. Luthor is also a human who keeps one of the most superpowered heroes, Superman, on his toes, and that 2. He managed to convince the country, despite being a supervillain, to vote him in as president are both pretty impressive.
Coming in at number 10, we have Taskmaster. Let's kick off the list with a villain who is pretty well known and is actually going to be the main villain in the next upcoming Black Widow movie. At face value, sure, Taskmaster is pretty strong, but I wouldn't put him in the ranks of strongest of all time. After all, he can still be killed by conventional means, unlike Galactus or Thanos. But what makes Taskmaster so powerful is his ability to train others. On more than one occasion, Taskmaster has been in charge of training armies to fight against heroes. Now, because Taskmaster has his super drug, which allows him to have insanely powerful recall, and he is able to mimic and decipher other people's combat styles, he can use this to prepare thousands of people to take down heroes in the perfect way. He would know exactly how to fight them, and he can display all of their techniques because he already knows them. So it's not so much that Taskmaster himself is massively powerful, but it's the way that he can apply his skills. Coming in at number 9, we have The Natural, a brand new villain on the scene so though the potential of their own power is still unknown, but it would seem at the very least they can beat the hell out of some of the most skilled heroes that are already calling themselves Avengers. In the first issue, where we see the Natural take center stage, he comes into conflict with Bucky Barnes and the Falcon. The two of them are veterans of the hero world and should be able to take out a new villain with no problem. I mean, at first glance, the Natural looks like a 20-year-old with the brightest blonde hair and eyes you have ever seen. He looks like he should be on a K-pop poster, not beating the hell out of two members of the Avengers. Well, that's exactly what he does. And before we can get any more details about who this brand new villain is, he has to run off and we have no idea where he went. I think it's safe to say that this guy could be one of the Avengers' most skilled enemies in the future. Coming in number 8, we have Stiltman. I mean, the name alone is super lame. You couldn't call yourself anything cooler like Dr. Tall or Towerfoot or Lanky Larry, anything. But even though Stiltman is super lame at first glance and doesn't have any real powers outside of his super suit, he's actually quite strong. When you go through the list of heroes that he has gone toe to toe with and actually created a lot of issues for, he actually starts to look like a little bit of a big shot. Mind you, he's not going to be ripping down reality anytime soon, but he might just kick Wolverine in the head so hard he gets a concussion for like 30 seconds. Coming in at number 7, we have Bessie the Hell Cow. I mean, we have to throw Bessie on here just because your average comic fan would have never heard of her. It definitely caught me off guard. How do you make a cow that is so powerful it constantly comes back from the dead and has been a villainous threat for nearly 300 years? Well, you have Dracula bite the cow and drain the blood out of it. Then the cow dies. Then the cow comes back to life as a vampire cow and goes on the loose trying to murder anyone that gets in its way. And this cow has all the regular tropes that vampires have, so you better believe that she's going to be drinking blood all the time. Also, she has the ability to move her soul into another cow's body if she gets killed, so in a way she is immortal. And what if she can move her soul into another creature's body, like something even more powerful? Coming in at number 6, we have the Hulk. Wait, why is Hulk on this list? He's a hero and we all know how strong he is. Well, I threw him on the list because even though his strength is known, his changes to the side of villainy are probably not as well renowned. There is an entire comic run, Planet Hulk, where the Hulk is banished from Earth and was supposed to live out his days on a desolate planet, but then he ends up becoming the king of a faraway world and then returns to Earth to lay waste to all the Avengers, and holy moly does he do a number on them. And there have been several times when the Hulk has turned his back on his pals because of one of his famous mood swings, or even became their enemy at a crucial moment where they needed him to be clear-headed. In the end, Hulk is only a hero for as long as his patience lasts, which is usually pretty long but can shift at any moment. Bruce Banner. We might as well follow one half with the other. Now, even though Hulk is way stronger than Banner, Dr. Banner is way more unexpected of a villain. I mean, he's been a certified hero right up until Jason Aaron had his run with him on the Hulk. This was where the Hulk had Dr. Doom separate him from Banner for good. Now you think this would be better for the both of them, but turns out Banner goes insane without the Hulk floating around in his head, and Banner as a villain is pretty powerful. He starts a Dr. Moreau Island making a bunch of Hulk animal hybrids. An army of Hulk creatures is enough to make any member of the Avengers sweat, and on top of all this, he's one of the smartest people on planet Earth. So even though it hasn't happened a lot, when Banner goes bad, everyone should be shook. Coming in at number 4, we have Mojo. I don't know if Mojo is more unexpected or forgotten, but I think he slides perfectly into this spot on the list. Mojo is basically what happens when you give a CEO supreme cosmic power without any laws. Mojo is the ruler of his world and basically runs everything like a TV executive, creating more and more outlandish ways to create entertainment for his people without a shred of morality. But Mojo has been able to capture some of the strongest heroes and force them to compete in battles of strength, so he can keep his ratings at an all-time high. Coming at number 3, we have Venom. Once again, another villain who packs a punch but usually operates in the realm of manageability. Like if Venom is on the loose, you don't call in the Avengers A-Team. You send in the East Coast Avengers to deal with them and then you call it a day. But here's the thing, symbiotes can sometimes get stronger over time and their strength is very much attached to the person they bond to. For instance, there was one occasion where Venom combined with Red Hulk and Ghost Rider to make one of the most incredible comic book fantasies I could ever dream of. So for his day-to-day endeavors, Venom is a cool villain with an amazing backstory and a decent power level, but when you get into some of the all-time most powerful things that he has ever done, he is pretty amazing. Coming into the number 2 spot, we have Juggernaut. The first YouTube video I ever watched was a dubbed episode of X-Men, and I still remember it. It highlighted the Juggernaut in the best way, but even though we know the Juggernaut is strong as hell, he's not the strongest in the universe kind of strong. He's able to take on some of the stronger Marvel heroes like Thor, but he can also be bested by the likes of Spider-Man. But here's the thing, the Juggernaut's power level tends to fluctuate a lot. He gets his juice from the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, which is basically powered by a god from another dimension. On one occasion, Cain Marco, aka the Juggernaut, was able to tap into the full potential of this gem and became a being so powerful he could crack through realities with a punch. He was also 100 feet tall, so as you can imagine, he was quite the tough villain to take down. In fact, if he never lost touch with the true strength of that gem, he might have been supreme overlord of all the Marvel Universe. And coming out of the number 1 spot, we have Absorbing Man. At face value, Absorbing Man is a brute who can suck in some metal and punch dudes in the face. It's a very simple skill, but here's the thing about Absorbing Man, his powers are actually magical, so that means he can absorb things that work outside of the realm of reality. He is able to absorb energy from magical weapons, and he's also been able to absorb Ultron. Wait, what? Yeah, you know that powerful robot that almost killed the Avengers like 100 times and was actually successful on a few occasions in other timelines? Well, Absorbing Man sucked him in and then was able to absorb knowledge and basically became the most powerful creature on the planet by far. So who would have thought that some low tier criminal would be able to get to such a high power level? That is way over 9,000. Alright, that has been our list, and now I'm going to give you guys my picks for the dumbest villain tropes. I just want to start off by saying I don't think these tropes are bad. I absolutely love these tropes, but we all have to admit they are dumb. The first one I don't like is you do one good thing and now you're a good guy. We see this again and again in every form of media. You have someone who's been a stone cold villain. They have been killing people for years. They might have been an arch enemy at one point, and then all of a sudden they have them do one heroic thing and then they team up with the good guys. Now sometimes this will just happen out of convenience, but other times we will see this happen and someone who has been evil their whole life is now a good guy and starting to fight with the heroes for an extended period of time. Now while I like this as a fan, I think it's dumb because what are we going to do? Just forget all the war crimes because you did one good deed? And the next thing I think is dumb is monologuing. You have a hero captured and you gotta tell him everything that is going on. I understand that media uses this as a tool to tell the viewer what's going on, but it does seem kinda dumb that the villain would expose their whole plan to the person who's trying to stop them. And my final pick is the gloat. It's similar to the monologue but works in a different circumstance. When you're the villain and you've been duking it out with the hero, you beat them in hand-to-hand combat or with an energy sword or whatever you're fighting them with that day, and then the hero's on the ground wounded and you see that they're about to be killed. Instead of quickly murdering their enemy when they're right there, the hero starts to gloat about how much better they are, and then this gives the hero an opportunity to take out their foe and save the day. Just get the job done. Don't go to 99%. Come on.
Starting us off in at number 10, Cassandra Nova. Cassandra Nova is a psionic parasitic life form that was born without a body on the astral plane. She's technically a race called a Momondrai. Having become telepathically entangled with Charles Xavier, she copied his DNA and inherited some of his powers, adding to the already impressive skill set that this life form boasted. Okay, so context time. Nova copied Xavier's DNA to make herself a body, and then shared his mother's womb with him. Once she had fully formed hands and eyes in the womb, she tried to strangle Xavier to death with his own umbilical cord. That's metal. But Xavier released a psychic blast, which then caused his mother to have a miscarriage, and Cassandra ended up being a stillborn, although she managed to survive as cellular matter until she was able to grow a body for herself over time. So what is she capable of? Well, some terrifying stuff, that's what. She has telepathic and telekinetic powers, can duplicate DNA, has spontaneous cell regeneration, can shapeshift, can control cosmic fire, is immune to magic, and has premonitions. She can also control minds, gather souls, and dematerialize. In at number 9, Mr. Sinister. Created in 1986 but not fully seen on the panels until almost a year later in Uncanny X-Men issue 221, Mr. Sinister is Nathaniel Essex, a biologist who is obsessed with evolution and Darwinism. He is a genetically altered human who has become a mutant via his own genetic manipulation. He is telepathic, telekinetic, and through experimentation with genetic material from a mutant called Courier, he has gained complete control of his body at the cellular level, meaning he can shapeshift, regenerate, and be virtually immune to most injuries. He also has a prolonged lifespan. In addition to that, he is a complete genius when it comes to biology, genetics, cloning, physics, and engineering. In at number 8, Vulcan. Vulcan is a Summers boy. The brother of Cyclops and Havoc, Vulcan, aka Gabriel Summers, first appeared in X-Men Deadly Genesis issue 1 and had a much more tragic alien upbringing compared to his siblings. His infant body was aged to adolescence through a Shi'ar incubation accelerator. So yeah, definitely not a normal childhood. An Omega-level mutant, Vulcan is capable of vast energy absorption, manipulation, transformation, and projection. He can fly. He can project force fields and manipulate said projections. He can regenerate to an extent and provide life support, and he can replicate others' superpowers to an extent. Plus, he's psionically resistant. Not too shabby. And at number 7, Monarch. Not to be confused with the Monarch of DC fame, this Monarch is James Braddock Jr., brother to Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, and Betsy Braddock. An Omega-level mutant, Braddock has quantum reality manipulation powers. Now this means he sees the world as invisible string constructs, and he can pull on those strings to transform reality. He is also experienced in sorcery and has a superhuman stamina. Now unlike his siblings, he shifted into a life of crime early on, and eventually had to be put into a coma by his sister, while she was Psylocke, in order to stop his reign of terror with his reality warping powers. In at number 6, we have Exodus. Exodus, aka Benet du Paris, first hit Marvel's panels in 1993's X-Factor issue 92. Capable of telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, superhuman physical attributes, and has a regenerative healing factor, oh, and obviously he's immortal, this Omega-level mutant has kicked some major X-Men butt in the past. His telepathic abilities surpass those of Charles Xavier, Emma Frost, X-Men, and Jean Grey. He's also a psionic vampire and can steal psionic energy from those around him if he's weakened. Plus, he can handle a whole lot, taking not only the X-Men, but also the Avengers on at the same time. Moving on to our number 5 spot, we have Magneto. This one's kind of an obvious one, isn't it? An Omega-level mutant and the most iconic character to appear on this list, Magneto is one of the most beloved villains of all time as far as comics are concerned. He is a villain with a point, a Holocaust survivor who uses extreme methods and a cynical philosophy in order to protect mutants from suffering a similar fate of persecution at the hands of a world that fears them. His ideology is in direct competition with that of Xavier's, and he rejects the idea of a peaceful human and mutant coexistence. He also believes that mutants are the evolutionary superior race. Aside from his intellect and his ideologies, Magneto is dangerous for his magnetism manipulation abilities. Like we said, he is an Omega-level mutant, meaning there is no actual cap to his powers or capabilities that we know of. Speaking of Omega-level mutants, let's go to our next number. In at 4, Legion. Really, Legion isn't a villain, but he's a character who has put a lot at jeopardy as far as mutant kind is concerned. So, Legion is the son of Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller, and is an Omega-level mutant with a vast amount of abilities that include reality warping, shape-shifting, matter manipulation and transmutation, energy manipulation, telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, and time travel. Legion, aka David Haller, also has hundreds and hundreds of split personalities. He's way more of an anti-hero these days, but initially the character caused a whole lot of trouble for the X-Men when he tried to go back in time to kill Magneto as a means of helping his father achieve his dream of human-mutant coexistence. And in doing so, he accidentally created the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Yeah. In at number 3, Onslaught. Onslaught is a psionic amalgamation of two exceptionally powerful mutants. We're talking Charles Xavier and Magneto. Okay, story time. In 1996, in X-Men Volume 2, Issue 53, Onslaught was created as the result of Charles Xavier putting Magneto into a coma. Now, prior to this, Magneto had used his powers to rip the adamantium off of Wolverine's skeleton. It was pretty brutal, and caused Xavier to be slightly unhinged. He lost it and used his telepathic powers to render Magneto catatonic, shutting down his mind. Now, during this psionic contact, all of Magneto's anger, grief, and desire for vengeance entered Xavier's consciousness, and then mingled with all of Xavier's negative suppressed feelings that he had buried deep down. The result was a sentient psionic entity called Onslaught, who was too powerful for just the X-Men to take on. The Avengers and the Fantastic Four had to get involved too to stop him. He is a villain with psychic omnipotence, who is superior in physical and mental power. He possesses the combined abilities of Professor X, Magneto, Franklin Richards, and Nate Gray, and overall, his powers exceed that of an Omega-level mutant. In at number 2, Proteus. Proteus is our last Omega-level mutant on this list. The son of Moira McTaggart, Proteus is Kevin McTaggart, a mutant with reality warping and possession powers who lived most of his life in seclusion at his mother's Muir Island research facility. Now this is because he exists in a state of pure psionic energy and can take possession of human bodies, with most of the bodies burning out within a few days or hours. His vast psionic abilities allow him to fully dominate said individual he possesses, and he has access to the individual's memories during this time. Although he cannot do this with with those who have metal in their bodies. It's actually his weakness, and seems to disperse his consciousness if he tries to enter them. So, the likes of Wolverine can withstand him. Now, his reality manipulation abilities allow him to bend the laws of physics and transmute matter. He can do this with absolute ease, and that is terrifying. These days, like several other mutants on our list, Proteus is one of the good guys, aligned with the mutants of Krakoa, and is actually part of a group called the Five. It consists of 5 mutants who use their abilities to revive dead mutants. And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Apocalypse. Apocalypse can pretty much do anything. The character who first fully appeared in X Factor issue 6 back in 1986 believes in the survival of the fittest. If you are weak, you are destroyed. Apocalypse is all about trying to forward evolution, and he believes he's right in his actions too. That's a deadly mentality. And what about his powers? Well, they all stem from his self-molecular control. This means that he has molecular, matter, energy, and universal manipulation abilities. He's omnipotent, he's omnipresent, and he is immortal, invulnerable, has superhuman strength, stamina, speed, durability, agility, reflexes, resilience, dexterity, intelligence, and senses. He's got a genius level intellect, he can fly, he is a shapeshifter, he can astral project, he's telekinetic, telepathic, a technopath, precognitive, can augment the powers of other mutants, can transfer consciousness to another being, has the ability to absorb, manipulate, or steal the powers of other mutants and cosmic beings, and he has the ability to make other mutants' powers stronger. So all in all, there's a reason why he's the most feared villain of the X-Men's. Although these days, post House of X, he's on the good guy's side now, and goes by a symbol for a name that no one can pronounce.